Hello, welcome once again. If you have a problem with your car starting, obviously the first thing to your mind always is the battery. So, like I demonstrated before, we have a load tester over here. As you can see over here, same thing applies. Positive, positive, and negative. These are very thin wires. The reason being this doesn't send any current from the battery to the load tester. Just to measure strictly the milliohms, the resistance. Now, let's start the test, and you can see yourself measures 12.30. This is now the voltage of the battery. We want it to be charged at 12.6, so it's already around 50%. Compare this to another one, the other meter, 12.26. A little small variation, but that's okay. Now, what do we expect to see? We test it. Wait. That's the cold cranking amps. Cold cranking amps, and this one is 850. That's how much it can deliver. Now, try it again. You'll see. You put half of the cold cranking amps, which is 425. It'll give you a pass or a fail. Obviously, if you give out that much cold cranking amps, it passes the test. Also, for temperature compensation. Related to the temperature, the cold cranking amps and the battery voltage has different limitations. So obviously you can see at any point that I put it on, I set it for 425, which is half of the cold cranking amps, and it either gives me a pass or a fail. Obviously we have a pass, but like I was saying, this measures the internal resistance of the battery. As the battery is discharged, the internal resistance increases. So does the voltage internally in the battery also increase, and you lose more output. That's what happens. This doesn't go by 100 amps load, giving 100 amps. The wires are too thin, obviously. So now we're going to crank, and we're going to measure across for corrosion or rust from here to here. The best part is to put it at the posts. Always to measure the battery. When you're going to measure it at the posts. This post and this post, because you don't know if you have corrosion. But I know I'm good, that's why I put it over here. So I'm going to take this out, and hold on, I'll make the other setup. Now, as I stated before, to resume the video, you want to do the voltage drop test. This is the true test because now you're cranking actually 300, 400 amps, depending how many cylinders. So, as you can see, hopefully without the glare, we use the same function, minimum, maximum. Maximum is here, average, and minimum. You're going to look at this one. This is what you're concerned about. You don't want this one to be less than 9.6 volts. So when I crank it, you're going to look at that. But another thing to keep in mind, I'm not going to crank it right away. I'm going to leave it in the run position. When I leave it in the run position and put the lights on, that battery voltage, the present one over here, should not go down that much. You're looking for how much it drops, and you're looking for the rate of it. It should not drop that fast. If it drops to 11 or something like that, it's a weak battery right away before you even crank. So first, pay attention to this, to the minimum, and this one's going to go to the 14 volts of the alternator. But like I said, I'm going to put the lights on, air conditioning, and you're going to see before I even crank how much this is. We're going to resume when I start it. Again, I had to crank it myself, so I wasn't able to leave the camera. But you see the point I'm trying to stress. The lowest that it goes down to is 10.8. Obviously, even with the charge of the battery at 50%, I'm still within the limit of limitations. I'm still good at 10.8. That's why this type of loop meter that I'm stressing is the best type of meter, because it gives you an accurate location right away. And to me, this is the best test, because now you're cranking 300 amps, 400 amps. A low tester test that I did, you're only taking 100 amps. This is the full load on it, and this shows me the true value. But obviously, if you can't start, then you're going to have a problem obviously doing this test. So now we're going to do the corrosion test, which is to measure the voltage. This is from the alternator. This is coming from the alternator. The other one is coming from the starter. We're going to measure from here to here. We should measure obviously very, very little, 0.1, 0.2 volts. If there is resistance here, current flowing, which there is, if resistance, there'll be a substantial voltage drop. That's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want any voltage drop loss at the terminals, because we cannot afford to lose from here to the starter 0.4, 0.5 volts. We can't lose that much. If you have corrosion, you could lose a lot of voltage through here before it even gets to the starter. I will resume it and then I'll show you the setup. Now resuming the video again, I'm going to do a corrosion test among the cables from the post till here. We should not have any loss. Remember, now we're cranking, we have current flowing. But if the resistance is low, you should have a low voltage drop. Same thing applies from here to here. So now, let's try the negative terminal. Look at this meter over here. And I know there's a glare. Trying to do the best. I should have used a tripod. But anyway, the best part is to go over here, to go to any one of them, wherever you can fit it. Now, I want to go to the post. Why? Because I want to make sure there's no corrosion in between here and here. So watch the meter when I go from here to here. How much is that? How good is that for accuracy? 0.0066 ten-thousandths of a volt, or 0.6 millivolts. Okay? And now even if I go from here to here, same thing applies. Let's go now to the positive. Okay? I'm going to attach it. Let's say I'm going to attach it here. And I'm going to attach this one to the post. Okay, you see the hookup? This is the one that goes to the starter. These are the battery terminals. Again, I want to make sure there's no corrosion in between here. Between here, making the contact from this to this. I'm going to go from here to here. As you can see, it's fine. What I did was, in another video, there was a test that I did measuring the resistance between them. Let me pause the video and then I'll show you another thing. Now, another thing to point out, when putting back the terminals, you have to make sure to put on tight fully down. You see the head of it is sticking up? Then I know this is all the way down. Many times this is flush with this. That's not a good connection. You have to make sure it's steady, because there is vibration obviously when you ride or you drive 80 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. Make sure you can see this, the top of this. You see this? Then you know this is all the way down. See this? I see the head of it sticking up. This little flush, that means this is all the way down. If it's not all the way down, it'll be loose later on. Now, about the test that I did before, the voltage drop test for corrosion, I took this off another video, and to make sure, I measured from here, from inside this to this resistance. If there is corrosion or rust, you will not make a good contact with the voltmeter. You can see that video that I made. So we'd go from inside here to where I have that negative, and you can see that video, and you'll see there's 0 ohms. So that's why I expected to have very little voltage. That's the thing that I recommend. Take off the cables, take that off from the post, go to one side, go to the further side from there, measure resistance. If you measure some type of ohms, there's corrosion, and you can see the video that I made. Now measure the alternator output. Now what you're seeing over here is I'm measuring across the wire the cable from the alternator back to the positive post, to make sure I don't have any sufficient voltage drop. As you can see, I still left on the minimum maximum. You'll very well inspect. you shouldn't see 0.3, 0.4 volts, anything like that. Even 0.2 is suspicious. As you can see, we're well below it. Again, I went to this one, the red one that goes back to the alternator, and goes back to that one. Now, I want to measure the alternator output. This is the alternator output. Again, minimum, maximum. That's the alternator output. Okay. Now, there is a function on this. You can record it. So let's say you have a problem. Let's say you have a problem where you think it's intermittent or you're losing voltage. Where you think you're losing voltage or you have a battery drain. So on this type, there's a function. But on this, hard to see, but I'll go through it. Okay, record, start. Now it's recording as many minutes as you need it to record. After it records it, you can graph it out to see where you lost it. You lost a voltage or a drop. So let's stop it. Save it. Save it somewhere. Okay. Trend. And here's the graph. See this straight line? You know what that represents? That represents the voltage. As you see the voltage, well, 13.9 volts around there to 14 volts on the graph. Right here, it's a straight line. That means for those minutes that I had it on, I did not have a problem with the voltage or anything intermittent. That's why this is the best meter around. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I'll make more hands-on videos. If you want me to make more hands-on videos, please subscribe and hit the bell. That way you know when I make a new one. Maybe it'll help my views. So anyway, my channel is Joe L-Char Schematic for Auto. I would to hit the accelerator to see how the alternator works and all that. These have the pedal position sensors and accelerator. So you can go to the next video, check out my other videos, and hopefully you can see this a little better than on the graph.